Welcome to Startup Hack. My name is Spencer Thomason. I've been a software developer for over 25 years. I have helped hire and train over 100 developers. Today we're going to dive into a Git crash course and get you started so you can start using Git, which is a powerful tool for tracking your code and maintaining your code. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started today. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive into our Git crash course today. These are some of the things we're going to go over. We're going to go over installing Git, creating Git account online, Git setup and the login, starting a new Git repository, cloning a repository, and then also useful Git commands. Now, one of the first things that we want to talk a little bit about is about branching and commit strategies. So we're going to talk about workspace, staging, local, and remote. One of Git's biggest advantages is its branching capabilities. This allows someone to branch off of the master branch where the production quality code typically remains and work on a feature or fix independent of the rest of the project. Let's go ahead and take a look at a diagram of this here. So now you can see your work, a master branch, and this is where the main code resides. Then you can see that you want to do your work, so you'll actually pair off a feature branch off of the master branch. This branching strategy allows you to work while someone else is doing some work at the same time, and then allowing your code to come back in a constructive manner where you can merge these back into these various repositories. So this becomes an important branching and commit strategy. And there's a lot of different branching and commit strategies. Feature branches provide an isolated work environment for a developer to work in. They're also useful for organizing different levels of granularity. I'm going to go ahead and pull up an example of one that's a very popular flow known as the Git flow. So in a Git flow, you're going to see that you'll have three main branches: your main or master branch, your staging or your development branch, as well as then feature branches. And so in this case, what we can see is you have your main branches with like a version 1, a version 2. Then you'll have your development branch, which is really how you'll work out. If you'll work out of your development branch. And then as you're done with these, and this chart doesn't exactly show it, but you would actually merge things back up to the master branch at the point that you deploy it to production. Then as you do work, you would branch off of it and do a feature branch. And then once your branch is done, you would do it here. You could merge it back to the development branch and then development branch back to master branch. This is a very popular strategy, and I know at first this may seem a little confusing, but bear with me here as we work through this today. Some of this will make a little bit more sense. Now, development is where the develop branch is where we normally do our work then, and just master branch is what goes to production. So this allows us to hit milestones of like versions where we can track to these, and we can always go back to a version, and if we need to do a hotfix, we can even do it off of those versions. So this becomes a very interesting strategy, and you can study a lot about Git branching and flows. We're going to talk a little bit more about a different type of a diagram, and this is the workspace, staging, local repository, and remote. So a Git repository is also split up into 4 levels. Each level represents a state of the code base. Each state is isolated from each other, but Git commands allows you to transfer data between them. So I'm going to explain this a little bit, and then we'll work into some examples, and I think it'll make more sense after that. So the workspace is the folder on your computer. This is where all the work happens. The staging area is where we change files or place them before making a commit. It allows you to essentially select only the files you want to commit. The local copy is your repository. No one else will see this except for you. Now the remote is the public repository. Everyone sees the same remote. So what we do is move changes from one area, one workspace to another. Will involve passing workspaces from one to the staging to the local repository, then local repository up to the staging and up to the remote. It's also important to notice that all communication must pass through the remote repository in order for it to be tracked, or else otherwise it will only stay in your local branch. Now, this all gets confusing pretty quick when we just talk about a lot of words and charts and graphs, but we're going to get to some examples here pretty quick. So one of the first things you definitely want to do is go and download Git. So this course is mostly designed for Windows, a lot of .NET developers. work in Windows, so you want to go grab the 64-bit installer. Once you do that, it's going to be pretty much a next type of install. And then once you install that, you're going to have you're going to show as this Git Bash here. Now, there's a lot of different graphical tools, and I will demonstrate in our course that we do some of the graphical tools. I'm going to show you some of the examples here today at the command line because I think it's important to understand this. But if you want to learn more, make sure you sign up for our course at startuphack.com. It's a fantastic place where we teach developers, and in 3 short months, you can go from literally knowing nothing to becoming a full stack developer and getting a job. We help people with the tutoring to go right into their job. So make sure you check out startuphack.com. It's fantastic courses that we offer. And then also make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we do add lots of different sample videos like these. And we'll be doing another one here after this one for some more advanced tactics with Git. So anyways here, so your very first Git command is once you've installed Git onto your computer and open Git Bash, you'll be met with something like this. Now you want to navigate to where you want to put this. So if do change directory, this is going to be very similar. I do also do a crash course on Linux. So I do a 4-part crash course on Linux. Make sure you check out the channel and you can go see those if you aren't familiar with Linux commands here. And also make sure you check out the course because we do teach all of that in the course. So now what we want to do here is, so we're going to go to a directory where we can, actually we don't even have, right at the command line, we can say git and then -- version. This is going to show us which version of Git we have. So that's the version of Git I've downloaded here. So that's your very first Git command, is to check which version you have. Now, some of the places for remote code repositories, your most popular ones are GitHub and GitLab. Bitbucket's also pretty popular, but definitely nothing to compare with these first two. So GitHub, you'll see GitHub looks something like this. So this is a code sample, set of code samples that we do. Some awesome .NET code samples here. You want to definitely learn how to use Git in order to pull these down. And so you can notice this is GitHub. You notice the symbol up there. And then GitLab is also another one. So this is another project that we use as we're teaching here for Git. And so those are some examples of remote code repositories. So as we were talking about in this diagram, you'll have your local working repositories where you can work locally on your machine. And then you have the remote code repository where we push and pull code from. And we'll explain what that means here just in another minute here. All right, so one of the first things you always want to do once you've set a new one is make sure you set your name, because this is how you're going to be recognized to everybody out in the world. And so this is important. You'll notice if you look here in Git and you go to you go to a branch like this, you can actually see my name and everything being committed here as part of this. So this is where we go and set those values. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this command here. But so git config - global username. So, and obviously we don't want to be John Doe. We want to be, okay. So I'm setting that. And then I can also set git config global, oops, if I can spell global correctly, and user.email. So tab's your friend. One of the things you'll learn very quickly here is tab is your friend. Sorry, I guess I just realized you aren't seeing my Git window here, which is probably pretty important. So you'll see here that we just went through the Git version. You'll see the Git config for the global username, and then you'll also see, now I'm going to type this, and I'm going to add my email. So spencer@startuphack.com. All right, so now we've got these set. Now we're ready to rock and roll with our other Git commands. So next, the git init command creates a new Git repository. So let's say we wanted to start a new Git repository. So I'm going to go here, and let's say we just want to create a new one. So I'm just going to create a new folder here. My cool project. And inside of this project, we're just going to create, of course, a hello.txt. And what are we going to put into hello.txt? But nothing but, of course, but hello world, right? So we're going to save this. Now, I can go to my command prompt here. And we don't want to be in the demo one. We want to go to my cool project. Okay. And Then in the MyCool project now, you can see, so if I do a get status here, it's going to say, hey, I don't even know what this is. There's no get repository here. So we say get init. Now what it's done is it's created an empty get repository. So there's nothing in our get repository now. You see this folder here. Now we don't want to mess with the files inside of here. This is the Git database, and this is all the structure that Git will build inside of there. We're not going to go into this because, frankly, that would be a little bit above a crash course. Needless to say, don't mess with this folder. So now we're doing this, and now I say get status. Hey, look, it's telling me I have an untracked file change. So let's jump over back to our diagram here again. So now what we see is we're working in our working directory, and the working directory is telling us, hey, you have this file that needs to be committed, right? Because it doesn't even recognize it. So the very first thing we need to do is do our get add, right? Because we need to add it to the staging. So we say get add and hello.txt, and I notice I hit tab there. Now, if I do get status again now you'll notice it says green. It says, hey, this has been added to the staging, and you can either unstage it by removing it, or we need to commit it. So that's the next thing, is we need to commit to our local repository. So right now, this file is now sitting in our staging area. So I could remove it, but we're going to commit it. So git commit, you can do -a, and that will do all files, or you can say, specify which file. I can do -m and say I want to give it a message. What message do we want to get? My first commit. Wow, we just did our first commit. So if I look at get status, now there's nothing left. Our working tree is clean because now we've committed everything up to this local repository. Now, if we wanted to push this up to the remote repository, we could push this up to the remote repository. For this particular example, we're not going to, but you could push this up and create it up to the remote. But even still, you can actually work here locally. Now, I want to show you something pretty cool here about this, because what we can do now, and I'm going to make this a little wider, what we can do now is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create a branch. So get branch MyCool branch, because everything's cool that we do. So we're going to create a branch. Now you notice, so right here it's telling us what branch we're on. Right now we're on master. So if we do that, we say get checkout MyCool branch. Okay? Now you notice this changes and it says MyCool branch. So now we're on the MyCool branch. That's a little repetitive, but and so generally probably a bad idea to include the word branch inside of your branch name, but for case and purpose today. So now if I create another new file, so let's go create our file here and say MyCool branch, let's just call it a new file. Okay, so we have a new file now, and I think we have to have something in the file in order for it to really track. This is the new file that I made on MyCool branch. Okay, let's save that, close it. Okay, so now if you notice here, we get status. There's that file to be staged again, right? So we do get, add, and we can either hit tab and do the file name, or we can also, another little trick is to do a capital A. That's going to add everything into the staging. Unless you know exactly what you're doing, like you want to be a little careful with that, but that will add everything to the staging. So now we say get commit -a. That will also commit everything, -m, my second commit. Okay, get status, make sure we're clean, voila. Okay, now we have this, but we're still on this MyCool branch. So let's say I say get checkout, I'm going to switch back to the master branch. Hey, where'd my file go? It just deleted the file. One of the amazing things about Git is that everything is a directory and everything is files, and Git tracks all of these as files. And so that's one of the really cool things about this, about Git, is that as you use Git, it will actually can move files around, and it will actually change that working directory, because see, on this local repository, it will actually change the working directory as you do that. So now if I want to go back and go see that file, I can say get status, or I can say, say get checkout and go back to MyCool branch. Now we go back to our folder here. hey, my new file's back here, right? Now, let's say we want to merge these two together. So I'm going to get checkout master. We're going to say get merge my cool branch. It says, hey, I notice there's one new file, right? Get status. Okay, so now it's good. So now we're on the master branch and we still have this file. So it's now merged these two together. So Git is very powerful and we can look at a lot of different things. So let's actually go look at a graphical. So I actually like this. This is Git extension. There are tons of different Git tools out there. Literally, we could spend whole courses about it. But let's go ahead and open up this repository. We're going to go and find our repository here. Not that course. Let's go to this one. And if we go to our cool project here and select the folder. Now, one of the neat things about this is you can actually see graphically, we can see our first commit, we see our second commit, right? So we can actually bounce back and forth between these. And as we look here, we can actually even look at the files here and say, hey, look, on the second commit it has those files, on the first one it has this file. You can actually then go and even do differences between these two. So if I want to take this one and do a difference between them and see and compare, right? Compare to branch. Then, this is where we'd go and compare to different branches. But right here, it's actually telling me when I clicked on that, you can see it's actually doing the file differences and tell us which file is different. So pretty cool, powerful stuff. Lots of different Visual Studio or visual tools that you can use for this. But we can get through that. But this one's about Git, so we're going to keep cruising with the Git stuff here. So now next thing is we want to clone a repository. So what I'm going to do here is we are actually going to clone this repository. Now it's pretty common that you see this big blue thing here called clone. Go up here, grab the HTTPS link. You can click on that and it will copy it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change directories and go out of this. Make sure we don't have this one. We don't. So we're going to say get clone and then paste in that link, right, that we copied from up there. Maybe. Okay, apparently we didn't copy that very well. So you come here, hit the copy button. Maybe we didn't hit the copy button. And copy and paste. Now, you'll notice it's actually cloning. What it's doing here is it's actually going to pull down, enumerates all over the objects, counts them, and then compresses them and pulls it all down. And so now, if we actually go look at that directory and we say, this one is get sample. So see get sample, oops. And we've now pulled down the files that were up here in this Git repository. So this is pretty cool because now we can actually take this, and so we've just cloned this repository. Now we can take these files and say git status and do git. So let's go ahead and jump into that folder really quick. Now, if we're in our Git sample, and let's just go edit some of these really quick here, right? So let's open this guy up. This is a feature text. Adding more text. Now, I save this. Again, now our working directory isn't clean anymore, right? We have a modified file, right? So we can either, so if I say git restore, or if I say git checkout and I check out that file, right? What it just did is now if I go back to that file, it's erased the changes we've made. So we just rebased that file and cleared it out and lost all of our changes. So we want to be kind of careful when we do a checkout to make sure we're checking out specifically if we have any modified files. Because see, now if I do git status, it's completely wiped out that file. Or excuse me, it's wiped out the changes we've made to the file. But a lot of times we may want to make that change. So again, following that path of that diagram here, we do git status, let's go change our file again. So we're going to go into this. More cool text. Save it. Okay. Now we're going to do git commit am Whoops, I think we need to add it first. Whoop. So get add -a. That'll add it to staging, right? So we say get status. Now it's green. Get commit A for everything, and M for added some text. I heard a rule of thumb one time that said don't, and this is kind of a bad example, but don't in your get commit messages in the comments with them, don't say what you changed, say why you changed it. Now in this case, added some text because I wanted to. So that's probably a bad example, but now the difference is if we say get status, our working directory is clean, but it's warning us, say, hey, you got to use the get publish to get these local commits up to this repository. So if you'll look here, you'll see that this just has one line of code, right? So let's go back to our command line here, and we're going to say get push. Now it's going to push those changes up to the server. There we go. Now, if we refresh our page here, you can see the next, so this is a public repository that we can play with, our next commit. So now you see, hey, that's our message. Added some text because I wanted to, right? So we can actually click on this, go take a look at what changed, and it'll tell us here, look, we made this change. We added more cool text. So we've now gone through this last step where we did the working directory, we added it, the staging, we then committed it, we then pushed it. Now, we're going to do something else pretty cool here. So if we look at this, get status, now we're going to go into our repository up here, and this is going to be kind of cheating, but let's pretend that somebody else came along and they edited this file, right? Now we're going to open this with the web ID just because this will make this a little easier for us to demonstrate this purpose. Generally, it's probably not a great idea to do a whole lot of editing up here, but let's grab this file, and we're going to say text changed on the remote repo. Okay, so we're going to save that, close it. Okay, so we've closed all those. Now, if we notice here in our little source control window here, it says, hey, and I don't think it liked that, but it will let us commit and push this. It says, hey, whoops, we need to, here, let's say, my third commit. You don't have to normally name these. So how about edited on the remote repo? Okay, we're going to commit and push. Normally you would want to do it to a new branch and do a merge. Today we're just going to say, nope, let's just go ahead and push it in. So success, where changes have been made. So if we go back into that web page now, you're going to see as we look at this, right, edit on the remote, so we can see there's this new line. Now, if we go to our local repository here, right, so our example right here, this local repo, if we come here and I say get status, and we look at our local file here for this feature 3, we can see it only has 2 lines still, right? Okay, so now if I say get pull, what it's going to actually do is it's actually pulling from that repository and getting the updated changes. See how I updated these and says, hey, fast forward, there was one file that changed. Now if I go look at our file here, voila, text change on the local repo. So you can imagine if somebody else had like committed that code, pushed it up the repo, they did this whole set of work too, right? Going back to our diagram here, somebody else had pushed code up to the repository. When we do that pull of that repository, we then are getting those changes. So this becomes a really powerful way to collaborate with teammates and to be able to manage code between each other. So very, very, very powerful thing. All right, let's keep cruising here because we're rocking and rolling. So we've talked about get status. We've talked about a branch. We've talked about fetch. Fetch you don't really do a whole lot of. If you want to actually go look at changes and pull them down, you can do a get fetch command. What this will do is it'll go up and read changes, but not necessarily pull them. So that would allow you to kind of go and look and see what it is. It fetches the branch from the server along with their history and information. You can also use get fetch origin to update your remote tracking branches. Oops, don't want to finish up yet. The get pull we showed, a get checkout was how you change to different branches. Get add is how we add and commit and push. So I think we've gone through all of these now in our examples, and I've explained a little bit about each of these. And so I feel like we've given a pretty good little crash course in our 25 minutes here together today. One thing that I definitely want to make sure that we do is I really want to make sure that you like and subscribe the channel. I do try to bring you helpful content here. This is the second video in a three-part course, so I'm going to do another video about how to use Git a little bit more. We can look about graphing and logging and how to use some more advanced things with Git. Git is very powerful. The best way to learn Git is to use it, but really the best way to learn these things is to sign up for Startup Hack and go ahead and get a tutor who can help you with one-on-one tutoring in case you ever get stuck with anything. So make sure you go and sign up. If you want to learn to code, there is no better or faster or more in-depth way than in joining Startup Hack and joining one of our programs. All right, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We will catch you guys next time.